Hi, everyone. Welcome to this conversation with headshot photographer Kevin Tai. We talk about his journey from being an English as a second language teacher to going full time on his headshot photography business. We talk about some DIY ways that you can improve your headshot at home. And we also just talk about some of Kevin's experience with social media, with branding, and how he's kind of carved out a niche for him in his space. So, without further ado, here's the conversation. I'm kind of curious about this. There's a saying like the painter's house is always the last one on the street to get painted. So
Uh,
I'm curious how a headshot photographer takes their own headshot or gets a headshot of themselves without hiring someone. Did you do your own headshot,
the
or
one, yeah, the one that I have on right now, I did it myself.
how did you do that?
Lots of running back and forth, 3 hours to get that one picture. Trying to figure out what my best angles are. Um, just ridiculous facial expressions. Just to be,
Yeah,
it's it's so bad.
but the end result
It's
is great.
because yeah, it took 3 hours of having to to readjust everything. Um, it's hard. It's hard even with it's because the point of having someone who's really good at their job is to get you to forget about the camera.
True.
And I have no choice but to look at the camera because I'm also controlling it from my iPad and I control my computer, which then controls my camera, which then controls my flashes. So it's this whole like rigged up system. So I have to press it, then get up, and then be like, within like 3 seconds, go, but I can't do this because it's cheated, it's stupid. Yeah, and I don't know what to look, and then I have to like do my eyes, and then kind of have to like, angle, but then like I have to go back and forth. I don't know where my angle. It's
It's tough.
don't
Yeah.
take your don't take your own headshots. It's the worst.
Yeah, I had a friend help with mine, and it was like golden hour during sunset, and I think it turned out pretty good for DIY. But I obviously create a lot of video, and you don't understand how much setup goes into it unless you actually do it. It's like right
Uh-huh.
now, the setup I have is I've got my laptop, and then I've got this like kind of crazy rig system on the top of my computer that's holding my phone, and the phone
Yeah,
is the camera. I'm using the phone's camera, but it's hooked up to the laptop, and then it's
yeah,
like I'm perfectly positioned with window here, and
yeah.
then with lighting there. There's some things that I can improve, but it is the goal of an artist, I guess, is to sometimes hide all of the behind the scenes work um, from the end product and just showcase the beautiful end result, right? But one
Mhm.
of the things that I noticed you doing on social media and that I really appreciate is you're always sharing the process. You're sharing tidbits from your shoots. You share stories from your clients that you take headshots for. You share some tips and tricks. So I'm curious how you kind of approach marketing yourself, and what are some of the reasons that you even decide and want to show your process online? Like what goes into the thought process behind that?
Uh, yeah, there's a lot to it. I think so. A lot of people don't know, like you said, they don't know what goes on in creative pursuits, like
Mm-hmm.
painters, people who do house construction. Like, why does it cost so much?
Mm-hmm.
And it's about creating value in that. And the more value that we create, the more that they appreciate the price that they're paying for it. But also, the other thing is trust. And that
Mm-hmm.
type of trust that's created is important because so when, like you said, like, we bring in all this equipment and we bring in all these different things, and they're like, oh, wow, so technically, with the technical and financial part, this is what we're paying into. But the other thing is, I just made a video about this just like 5 minutes ago, is about like making people feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the videos behind the scenes stuff is like making people laugh, the jokes that we have there, because no one knows why it costs so much money to just take a picture. It's a selfie. I can do it myself with my camera. But the process of getting a genuine smile and a genuine laugh, it's more than just point a camera and shoot. It's the jokes that comes in. It's the ways each photographer does it differently, but the essential idea is getting you to forget about the camera, kind of like we were talking about before, so that we can really engage in what we love.
Mm-hmm.
For you as a great interviewer, getting people to really go deeper in their heads about the process, um, and just speaking naturally, speaking in a way that makes them want to share more, as opposed to just shutting them off and making them feel comfortable. Um, it's
Can
that
you
little bit
share
of skill behind. Uh-huh.
can you share an example of how you do that? How, maybe a joke you tell or a practice you go through to maybe catch people off guard and try to get a candid shot. Like, can you provide a specific example there?
Yeah. So one of the things that I always do is I take a picture beforehand, and this is
Hmm.
their just standard picture. Um, I'd say that I'm testing out the lights, which I kind of am, but it's mostly dialed in. So I take a picture, and then I fiddle with the settings, and then I was like, okay, we're ready. They get to the camera smile. I'm like, I stop smiling, and it's just deadpan. And they're like, huh? What? I was like, I'm just kidding. And like, and then they'll start smiling. Like, no, no, I'm serious. Don't. And like, what? And then, like, what? I'm supposed to smile in a picture. What am I doing? Um, and this way, they just forget about the camera and just get into the groove. Another thing that we do is, um, I get them to, one of my favorite things is get them to wink or do eyebrow tricks. And this is to kind of get their eyes to be very comfortable and relaxed. Otherwise, they're like this the whole
Yeah.
time. So things like, all right, good. It's a headshot, so it's only here. And I go, can you put your left foot in? I'm like, yeah, okay. All right, can you take your left foot out? I'm like, okay. Can you put your left foot in? I'm like, yeah, okay. Shake it all about. It is. They're like, what? Like, yeah, I'm not even shooting your feet, man. It's fine. It's okay. And they're like, oh, good.
It's like this
Yeah.
scene from a golf movie, Tin Cup,
Uh-huh.
that I've watched a few times. And his caddy, he has the shanks, like he's hitting the ball terrible. And he goes up to him and he's like, all right, reach into your left pocket. I want you to grab your quarter. You're going to throw that 50 yards in front of you. Now, when you're reaching your right pocket, you're going to put your golf tee in your right shoe. And he's like, why are you making me do this? What's the point? I don't get it. And then he gets to the ball and absolutely hits it perfect. And he's like, you weren't thinking. You weren't thinking about hitting the ball. You were just hitting the ball. So I feel like that's kind of
Yeah.
similar to what you do and making people feel relaxed. And I guess smiling and laughter is a natural human emotion and action, but
Mhm.
doing it in front of a camera is absolutely not. So
It's nerve-wracking. Yeah.
it is so nerve wracking. So do you think a lot of people come in having like practiced a specific smile or something like that, and it kind of sets them off on the wrong course? Or like, do a lot of people do that?
I would say at least a third of the people who come in ready to smile. And those are the people that I would say takes the longest to break down
Okay.
and to build that trust with them, where where they're not in control anymore. Um, there's a couple of people that will probably like I would say take about 15 to 30 minutes, which is a while, to really nail a genuine picture. Maybe not nail a genuine picture, but to get towards a genuine picture
Hmm.
where their eyes look like they care and warm, and their mouth looks like it's not held, it's not tense. Um, one of the things that people tend to do is when they smile, they're like this, and then they hold it,
Hmm.
and then they hold it for a while. But when you really smile, it's big and then it gets small very quickly.
Yeah.
And so I have to show them through the pictures that I take, like, okay, here's a picture where you're laughing, you're smiling, and you're really happy. And here's a picture a second later when you're holding it. And I bring them to my camera, to my laptop, or now that the iPad, and I show them what that difference is. And I have to kind of teach them one step at a time. So some people, it does take a while to really get them there.
Gotcha. And well, how long does that process
So
normally take from like when you start shooting to where you found this is the photo that we're gonna stick with?
everybody's a little bit different. Some people are just genuinely, um, I would say, natural in the way that they are with their personality, where they're just open to being, um, they're just open to my and receptive to my jokes, and so they get to it very quickly. Some people feel like they need to be in control. I've had one person that took about 45 minutes before they trusted me.
Hmm.
Um, and I had another person where I had to sit down with for 40 minutes or so to talk, and they get the person to relax their face in order to really hone in on why they're there in the first place. So it all depends. So which is why, like, I try not to do like the 15, I don't like doing 15-minute photo shoots. I like give myself a lot of time. So some people could take 1 minute, some people could take 45 minutes.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like being like a children's dentist, like where it's like you got to make them feel
Yeah.
comfortable, but the thing
Mhm.
is you can't use drugs or numbing agents on your clients. You've got to use laughter, I guess. So it's
Mhm.
similar but different. Is one thing I noticed is I love how you have all the examples of headshots you've done for your clients in the background. Like I know Dan Newman. I don't think we've met in person, but we've met virtually, and I recognize a few other faces from your posts. But I noticed maybe half of them are showing teeth in their smiles, and half of them aren't. And
Yeah.
growing up, my mom was always like, "Hey, Grant, please show your teeth in photos. Please show your teeth." And it wasn't natural for me.
Uh-huh.
So I'm curious
Yeah.
what your take is on that, and if that's a myth that should be debunked.
Well, everybody's different, and there's different reasons why people smile. Um, this person right, she's a dentist, so of course
Okay,
she got to show her
nice,
grills.
nice.
Culturally, she's from Taiwan, and let's see, he's from Korea, so
Hmm.
smiling is discouraged. They don't want you to smile. But yet, if you take a look at her eyes, if you know something I like to do is like if you do this, her eyes are very warm and very confident and engaged. Same thing
Hmm.
with his eyes as well. And then there's a little bit of a smile right there. Same thing with her, a little bit of a smile just right on the, the edge. And each of the things that we do on our faces are they tell a different story.
Hmm.
So approachability is in the eyes. So your warmth, your engagement, and then your confidence is there as well. And then you also have some warmth in the way that you smile and confidence as well. So for some people, it's the big smile is where they are at naturally. And then for
Hmm.
some people, it's not. And so it's just a matter of trying to find where that place is. So with with Dan, right? And Dan's a great guy. Um, he could smile really big and it's awesome, but if he smiles too big, then it becomes less authoritative and less competent, right? Um, and for him, it's not really exactly where he wants it to be necessarily, because he wants to be known as something that's much more. I don't want to speak for him, but I'll say something that's much more confident in a sense of what's right, not authoritative. Authoritative is the wrong word. Um, competent.
Maybe like competent, yeah, like a thought leader. I mean, I guess authority is something that you throw
Authority,
around.
yes.
Yeah, and I think that works. But that makes total sense. And you brought up like cultural differences too. And I know, within the business world too, whether you're in finance or whether you're running a marketing business or whether you're running a photography business, there's different norms that you have to be cognizant of. I'm the type of person that would prefer to be the standout and try to break that norm and be a little bit different. But I still think you have to operate within the realm of what works for your industry too. So, when you are planning a shot with someone, do you have a discussion about their industry, about maybe how they're trying to a few keywords that they're trying to portray? And have you seen any maybe two industries where it's like I'm going to treat this headshot one way because you're in this industry and a completely
Mhm.
different way because you're in XYZ industry?
Yeah. Yeah. Usually, I do a deep dive on the person, a digital dive. So LinkedIn's one of the easiest places to do that. So are they a speaker? What's their role? What's their industry like? Look at the other headshots that maybe exist on their webpage, if they have one, and also asking them where they want to see themselves and
Mm-hmm.
where the headshots are going to be. So one of the first questions that I ask, especially with an organization, is where are you showing this? Um, so with, I think over here I can show you. So this is Michelle Brown.
Mm-hmm.
This headshot was taken one of the last headshots that we did. All the other ones were for LinkedIn profiles and for herself as a vice president of Blue Cross Blue Shield of
Mm-hmm.
Massachusetts. This one was taken specifically for the Museum of Fine Arts because she was also on the board of the Museum of Fine Arts. And when we did all the other pictures, it's a very simple, very bright, light all around, um, something that's very good for LinkedIn, where it's just like I'm here. But for her, I
Yeah.
wanted something to be much more artistic, like a Rembrandt lighting,
Hmm.
that could be a fine art piece on its own. And I told her about that after she told me she was on the board. I was like, "Do you want one to be on the board of trustees?" And she's like, "Yeah." So we rearranged all the lights so that she could be like that. For Martin, he's a real estate broker, and he wanted one that was a typical real estate headshot. But then we also have another one where, well, what if he's talking to a family? And
Hmm.
having one that's much more wide open, much more welcoming, in the sense of the big smile, is geared towards that specific audience.
Hmm.
Um, a person that I talked to this morning, has a wants to do a headshot for LinkedIn, another headshot for her public speaking, another headshot for Slack, which is much more casual,
Yeah.
another headshot that's more of a, she's like, I think she said an adult. She was like 25, but she wanted something that where she looks like she's not 25 years old, that she looks more smarter than she is, or more trustworthy and credible than she is,
Hmm.
than what she looks like. Where all of our other pictures are much more casual with her dog and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
that's such a, like,
everybody has a different place.
portraying yourself like internally on Slack at your team. You probably want to make yourself way more approachable and friendly, um, as opposed to your external uh, platforms like social media. One of the things that I do is that across all the social media accounts that I have, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the abouts, like I use the same profile picture. And the reason I do that is because I think it helps people identify you quickly
Hmm.
across platforms. So I'm curious
Yep.
if what advice you give to people on that front. If you have any maybe contrarian advice to that as well, when it might
Yep.
help to actually choose a specific different type of profile picture for that.
Oh, definitely. My profile picture for Facebook is my 4-month-old son.
Hmm.
I don't do a lot of business on my personal Facebook account. That's not
Yeah.
where my clientele are. So I'm okay with having a baby picture as part of my headshot. However, for some other people who does do a lot of headshots, or photographers, I would say, one person I actually gave advice to the other day was to get the, what was it? The uh, uh, God of War. He had a God of War picture up of the bald guy,
Hmm.
and I was like, you might want to change that because you're a family photographer and you're also marketing yourself on Facebook a lot. You might want to change to something, for your profile picture that's more friendlier.
Hmm.
Um, on LinkedIn, and then when you're speaking, it could also be something different as well. It's still the same face, but the emotional value of, the emotional impact, let's say, is different. So I had one person who, she wanted to speak to executives on racism,
Hmm.
and helping executives understand racism is a very somber topic. And so she
Hmm.
had a picture for her for that part of the website to reach out those people to show that she's empathetic. But then the other pictures are much brighter. It's actually a green background and it's brighter and happier, and it's a whole completely different emotion because she also wants to help people, in organizations, become more like a tighter knit community.
Hmm.
So you could have everything the same, and that's one thing you could do. But if you have different audiences, even within your same organization, it's okay to, I think, to have different types of headshots or even full body shots, depending on what it is for
Gotcha.
branding.
I like I said, I use the same headshot across because I want to stay identifiable. Another reason I would love to have more variety, maybe like a similar scene in like a similar background, because I think
Hmm.
in size of my head, in that bubble, that little 36 by 36 pixel,
Yeah.
bubble we get to display what we look like as humans on social media. Similar background but different facial expressions and features, because I would definitely consider the personality I portray, like on Twitter, for example, is much more of a stream of consciousness and really random thoughts to have throughout the day. I think can maybe
Yeah.
inspire people, or maybe make people laugh, or just tweet because I want to. Whereas on LinkedIn, I try to be much more authoritative, like we've talked about, and more try to educate more. But I also still want to be inviting, and I really want to make sure people feel like they have the ability to reach out to me, and I'll respond to them because I sure will. Like that's my main priority. But one of the roadblocks for me taking more photos is that I could probably do it myself, but I just haven't taken the time, and also just haven't been able to make the investment to pay like a headshot photographer like you to do it yet. Hopefully in the near future, I'd love to do that. But for now, I'm doing my own headshots. So I'm kind of happy with mine right now. But if I wanted to make some adjustments and do a no round of headshots, what are maybe like 3 quick tips that you could give to like set yourself up DIY for a professional headshot?
Personally, lighting is going to be 100% always the key. If you can get that. And so when you're outside, if you're shooting outside, stepping right into the shadow is going to give you probably one of the better lights because it's not this harsh shadow that's on you. So
Hmm.
that's one. Um, so I will also avoid doing, especially if you're using your phone um, biggest to get the best quality is sunlight, natural sunlight outside.
Hmm.
Another thing would be to get a tripod for your phone, set that up, and that you can get that on Amazon for like $5.
Hmm.
But then also get a Bluetooth clicker. I use my watch because it connects to my iPhone. But having a Bluetooth clicker allows you to step further away. And then,
I'm
oh,
still
you
here.
disappeared. Okay. Um, with the Apple Watch, I can actually see what's framed on the camera, which is really nice. Another is then I would say to have someone on the other side that makes you laugh. So whether you have your partner with you, you have your kids with you, you have your friend, or even your parent, like your father, who makes fun of you all the time. Uh, and what you can also do is, if the person's manning the camera, is to press the record button, and then just kind of keep pressing um, on the iPhone. You have the record video with also taking stills.
Yeah, there's like that little
So
white button I think in the bottom
yeah.
left.
Mhm. And I'm only speaking for iPhone because I'm not sure about Android. And
Hmm.
there's also lots of different camera apps. So having all those together allows you to interact, to laugh, and um, to get the video, the behind the scenes, but also just clicking on the picture to get those in between emotions.
Yeah,
But
that
but
that's
definitely have
that's
someone there with you.
that's really I think helpful. I never thought to try to just keep taking photos and just like rapid fire. I think that's really good advice though. Um, are there any maybe like iPhone apps that you've used, or do you just use the standard camera app for that?
Just a standard camera for pictures anyway. I know there's some that requires payment and you can go really deep into it, but I found that the iPhone's been really good. And then edit in Lightroom
Gotcha,
on the phone. That's also really easy to adjusting the lighting and the exposure and things like that.
gotcha. I'm kind of switching topics here. I'm kind of curious what you think
Hmm.
of people using like images and Bitmojis for their profile
Uh,
pictures.
yeah,
Um, like Naval Ravikant does this on Twitter. Also, Elon Musk is insane with what he does, but also
yeah.
there's probably strategy behind it. Um, you might call it performative lunacy, him just doing crazy things to gather attention and make people pay attention. But
Yeah.
and a lot of people just have like sketch drawings, which I think are pretty cool visualizations, but it's not their actual face, which would show
Hmm.
up on a Zoom call or show up during a presentation. I'm curious what your thoughts on that is are.
I think those are fun. They're absolutely fun and they're really great for so if you're a team. I saw one organization where their entire team is just cartoonized versions of their headshots.
Mm-hmm.
And what's great about that is, so for me, I can take consistent quality pictures for your team even if you hire new people.
Hmm.
Um, but if you're hiring multiple photographers, they're not going to keep that consistency. So if you're all over the United States, all over the world, or you have new hires all the time coming in and out, having those pictures are actually, I would say, really smart because then you can pay someone on Fiverr like $5. They'll take the
Yeah.
picture and do it at the same style as what you had before, and you'll have a consistent team, portfolio,
Hmm.
which is one of the most important things about having a team, uh, uh, having a team page. So yeah, all for it. And it's fun. So
Yeah.
on Slack, on Twitter, on certain platforms where it's not as serious, like a net, well, not that LinkedIn serious, but more professional speaking,
Hmm.
like a resume.
That makes sense. And I think um, I've seen there's this company called Fast, and what they have this like mascot called the Fastronaut, and it's this headshot, or it's like a astronaut's helmet that is like around the perimeter of the bubble,
Yeah.
and within it is their like sketched out drawing. And what's cool is when you see that online, you know they're associated with Fast, but they still have their own kind of personal flair and personal identity,
Yeah.
and it kind of creates a cohesive unit and team that you see on social as well. So I think that's a strategy that if you execute it intentionally can work really well. And you know
I
what?
think
I
HubSpot, uh,
Go ahead.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, I think HubSpot has something similar where all their pictures have orange backgrounds.
Yep.
So even if it's taken on a phone or taken like with a professional camera or just like anywhere, if it's an orange background, you know they work for HubSpot. And that
Yeah.
consistency is what's key, that branding.
Very very helpful. And I think it's pretty amazing that we're having a full conversation just around headshot photography because it's so specific. It's like, and if
Yeah.
you would have looked back 20, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, it's like to think of how important it would be is pretty mind blowing. Um, so I'm curious, with your story, how you kind of ended up in this space, in the headshot photography space, and kind of the
Mhm.
steps that your life journey took to get you there.
Oh, this could take a while.
Oh gosh.
No, I was a teacher for the last 13 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in Korea, I was an expat teaching there for about 4 or 5 years. I picked up a camera because I was really bored. I took pictures of Legos. Um, and it's the most fun thing ever, but it's also like just a hobby. A couple of years ago, I got my master's degree in ESL.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been working towards for a long time. And then I got into a car crash on Christmas Eve, going to the gym that morning. And that was when things started to really change. I was just like, I don't want to teach anymore. So this was 2018, I think, Christmas Eve. Um, and my wife got me a new camera because that camera that I got in Korea over a dozen years ago, it went kaput. And I started taking pictures of people for fun, just my friends and my family and my students. And that's when I was like, oh, I really like what I'm doing. And I started to study it a little bit more and more with headshots specifically because I am an introvert and I don't really like to talk to people very much and be in that energy. So what's really nice is leveraging my introvertedness where I want to build relationships on a one-to-one basis. Headshot photography allowed me to be with that person one at a time and relax that person and
Mm.
get them to be genuine and happy. As part of my teaching, as a part of me as a teacher, I have new students coming in from all over the world with different levels of English. And how do I get those students to be to feel safe in the classroom so they will want to contribute, to trust me, to be connected to their other classmates, all within a matter of like 2 minutes.
Hmm.
And those type of skills translate very well to people who I'm taking pictures of because they're in an uncomfortable environment. They
Mm-hmm.
don't know what's going on. They don't trust me yet. And through body language and some jokes, get them to be comfortable in front of the camera and really be themselves. And there's something I was really good at. Um, and I realized as I was taking pictures that I really leveraged that skill with them. And there's a whole community of other headshot photographers all over the world who study together and help each other out, and we're all building each other up. So some people can make a lot of money doing this, and I was like, oh, I can do this too. Some nice side hustle money for my originally side hustle money, so I could buy new cameras and lighting equipment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I
Reinvest.
was laid off. Yeah, reinvesting. But then I was laid off in 2020, like everybody else. from teaching, and I decided to turn that into a full-time gig.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm sure to some extent COVID propelled this industry in people realizing just how important it was for them to show up online.
Yeah,
So
COVID is such a blessing in some sense for some people to really understand what they really want to do in life with the, money, finances, or just living life. Um, just a mental change for everybody. It's so important. It's
yeah, I
so
mean, forced
life-changing.
transition kind of for a lot of
Hmm.
people.
Yeah.
Whether and for a lot of people just not by choice. I mean, COVID was one of the reasons why I started podcasting more and doing one-on-one interviews. And what you said about introversion was really interesting to me because that hits with me as well. Growing up, I was extremely shy, and really could always connect with someone like one-on-one. That was always easy for me, especially like adults and older people growing up. Like I had
Yeah.
an easier time connecting with the elderly than I did with kids my age.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I've kind of gravitated towards, and like if I was in a networking event, I way more preferred being in a one-on-one conversation than being in a huge group of people and trying to compete for attention. Like that's not my forte. So I think that's one of the reasons why I've enjoyed this one-on-one podcasting and getting to know
Yeah.
people and doing interviews. And you said the same thing about headshot photography, and that's so interesting because it's so different than doing like a wedding shoot where you're having to corral people together and you're almost like orchestrating this like massive army of drunk people that whereas like your setting is much more one-to-one professional. You get to know them on a much deeper level. I'm sure that also opens up opportunities for like referrals and things of that nature and just also meeting other people. So
Mhm.
I think it's cool how your personality, you're able to use introversion as like a superpower in a way and as a strength when not everyone sees it like that. That is really
Yeah,
cool.
I think that's really good. And with you podcasting and interviewing one-on-one as an introvert, it's wonderful because you really dig deep and build those relationships, especially people you always wanted to talk to. But at a networking event, there's just no time because everybody's trying to sell stuff to each other or they only want to talk about themselves. But this is a great opportunity to have them talk about themselves because that's what it's supposed to be, and then really build that connection with them one on
Yeah,
one and offer them something wonderful, which is a platform.
it's true. And I mean, you and I met at a networking event pre-COVID,
Hmm.
a year and 2 months ago, maybe at Venture Cafe in Cambridge, just outside of Boston. And we maybe talked for like 2 or 3 minutes. And like, I'm glad we had that conversation because we ended up following up with each other afterwards on LinkedIn. And then I've kept tabs on your content and maybe vice versa. And then we're actually to translate it into a real conversation. I think this is the first time we've actually chatted since then. But now we're actually getting to have like a 45-minute full time conversation where I get to pick your brain and kind of vice versa. It's like it's really cool. Again, it's one of those blessings in disguise that's come from COVID
Yeah.
that it's like, yes, in person networking had a certain amazing uh, piece to it, and it was awesome. But also, I've found that I'm able to create just as meaningful connections with people virtually if I use the tools in the correct way.
Mm.
It's not just about likes, not just about connections. It's about like real relationships, and I think
Yeah.
you can actually do that on social media if you make the effort. So I want to ask you about how you do that as my last question, and then I want for you to give yourself a plug and tell people how they can find out more about you and maybe do a headshot session with you or where to follow you. But yeah, I'm curious, what are some of those ways that you've been trying to forge more meaningful connections on social media to build relationships?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think very similar to what I was talking about before about using my introversion and wanting to build relationships. I think a lot of things before it's about selling, about trying to
Mm-hmm.
sell, 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 sell. And that's what I did first started doing. It's just like, here's my products, here's all my reviews, here's what's awesome about me, to trying to be more real on LinkedIn. What I've noticed is a lot of people who post about their families, post about work-life balance, they received a lot of interaction
Mm-hmm.
because that's kind of what people want to see. And there was a lot of, people, LinkedIn try not to be political. Um, and a lot of people complain about that, but then they do want to understand the people behind the business. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I've learned is people don't buy from businesses and companies, they buy from people that they like. And so what I want to do, and it also is easy for me because it's part of my personality, is let me share with you the stuff that I'm learning. So Gary Vee, everybody
Mm-hmm.
talks about him, talks about documenting, not creating. And so just let me just tell you about my struggles and what I'm doing. Let me tell you what it means to be a small business. Let me tell you what it means to have these little successes, and we can all celebrate together because we're celebrating each other's business success. Um, and we're telling stories of each other because stories resonate. Chip and Dan Heath talks about this all the time in their books. Um, and so I love, so I'm reading all those books and being able to share what I've learned and share about who I am, and then celebrating when other people share about who they are, contributing and messaging them and going, hey, this is really cool. I'm really glad about this. Tell me more about blah, blah, blah. And then the conversation goes offline to the
Mm-hmm.
DMs, which people don't really see, but that's where the real personal connections gets made. And I love it, um, because that's where we want to be in terms of relationships. That's the intention of networking
Mm-hmm.
beyond just trying to sell to each other.
Totally. And I think my favorite post of yours was like a few weeks ago. I thought it was so creative. You posted like a government form of you changing like your job designation
Oh yeah.
from your previous career, which as a ESL teacher, to full-time headshot photographer. I thought that was just such a cool, simple like illustration of a life event that
Mm-hmm.
felt very inspiring to me. Um, so yeah, I think if you want to see what Kevin's talking about, what we're talking about here, how to create those authentic connections online, you need to go check out his profile, which is a great opportunity to tell us, where we can find more information about you and reach out if we so choose.
Yeah. I love taking pictures of people. It's one of the joys. I think during COVID right now, where we don't get to talk to anybody in real life, I pretty much everybody that I've talked to, that came through my studio is like, this is probably the best thing that's happened since COVID. It's the genuine connection that we have with another human being that's not our dog or our spouse or our roommates, um, and not online. And that's for me, I get to leave the house and get to talk to somebody who's not my wife or my dog or my child. Um, and it's just so wonderful to have that. And then when we have teams come in, I think two or three people at a time,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's just hanging out because sometimes that team moment is the first time the team has got together in the same space in like months. And to see that, I think that's the kind of human interaction that we're missing.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And so yeah, where can people find out more information about you in Three Circle Studio?
Yeah. So Three Circle Studio. Studio is singular. Circle is plural. I should have switched that. Um, SEO issues. I just redid my website, which is amazing. So even if you're not gonna purchase my services, just go because I just want to show it off. I spent months on that
Nice.
on the new website. Um, I'm also on LinkedIn a lot. That's my main platform. Instagram, not so much. And my son has a TikTok, so if you want to look at dad jokes for my son, um, DM me and I'll send you that link.
That's
Um,
perfect.
and yeah, so those are the main places that I'm at.
Awesome.
LinkedIn and my website and my
Thank you,
son's
Kev.
TikTok.
I'll link to those whatever platform this gets posted on. And I really appreciate the time, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, man. I really appreciate this. This is cool. I'm glad we were able to talk.
Awesome. Well, I hope you all really enjoyed this conversation. I'm going to include links below to Kevin's information, how you can reach out to Kevin at Three Circle Studio to learn more about his services, get some inspiration, and just introduce yourself. Really, I'd recommend connect with Kevin on LinkedIn. Like, he just has good content that is worth taking inspiration from and emulating in some way. So, thanks for listening. Hope you have a great day.